Hello you lovely people, Tiernan here with another how-to. So today we're going to be installing a lovely beige Berber carpet in this attic room. Now this particular room is 5 metres in length and 2.5 metres in width. So we've prepared our subfloor, we've got our gripper rods down, we've got our underlay down which is fully taped. So now I'm going to show you how to install the carpet. So the tools we're going to be using today, we've already gone through the kicker and the bolster. And then you need a straight trimming tool and you're going to need a hook trimming tool. They're the only two tools that we're going to need other than our kicker and bolster. So we're just going to start off by cutting from the bottom left hand corner of the room, because we're going to be keeping this piece of additional carpet to install it on the stairs. So I've just stopped the cut here because this extra piece is to allow for the doorway threshold. So now we're going to bring it in a little bit closer so we can get tighter to the skirting board. This will leave us with a larger piece of additional carpet. So now we've cut the piece a little bit closer to the skirting board, we're just going to continue all the way down the piece nice and slowly, making sure your fingers are at the back, because obviously if it's not, you'll tend to cut through both carpets. So you're going to make sure you're lifting it. There's a nice gap in between, and then just follow that along to your other wall until you've cut all your carpet. And just coming to the end, always pull it off, because if we cut it there we might scratch the wall. So we'll just pull it away and cut it like so. And now all we need to do is roll this piece up and start the installation of the room. We don't want to mark any of the walls. Put it in the middle. Let's get it rolled up. That's all done now. I'm just going to set this in the bathroom until a later date. Now we've readied this additional piece of carpet, which in due course is going to be cut up and turned into a stair runner. Now we've cut off the additional carpet from the first wall, we're just going to continue just trimming off the excess carpet on the other walls. So again, just bend it down. You don't want to cut them where it's on top of itself like this, because there's a danger of cutting through too. So just leave the carpet slightly high and just trim along like so. Just down into the corner and just finishing off just like that. And slowly working along, follow that same line, keeping this carpet off the actual face of the carpet underneath, because as I say, you don't want to cut through both. Into that corner and just trim it. Pulling the carpet out. Perfect. We don't need to trim this particular wall, because the way we've spread the carpet out, we've brought it low enough. So to make life easier with the install, I always put the offcuts in the centre of the room, and there's a couple of reasons. Main reason is the customer gets to see which pieces are larger and they can keep them if they want to. Because I always advise to keep any spare carpet should there be any issues with an iron burn, or if if the carpet needs repairing in the future due to any damage. It's always handy if you've kept some of the offcuts. So we've got our knee kicker, we've got our bolster ready to go. We're going to extend it, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to trim in this carpet so it's set ready to go into the bathroom threshold. that side done. And we're just going to come across to the opposite side, nice and gently. Again, let the carpet rise because you don't want to cut through both. Just going to cut off round to that side, let that carpet drop in on both sides. Perfect. Then moving on, just going to trim off this last piece of waste. Now we're all set to continue with the install. So now first off we're going to cut our corner in using our straight trimming tool. So pull the carpet back using your thumb to position in the actual corner. Keep pushing the carpet until you're satisfied that it touches both skirtings. Then pull it back, just simply trim along there and just finish off with a triangle. And then your carpet should fit perfectly into that corner. Now we've trimmed in our corner with our straight trimming tool, we're just going to use our hook trimming tool and we're just going to trim along this wall here. So just trim along, keep a lot of tension on the front of the knife, keeping the tension into the skirting board, just cut along and then repeat from the opposite side. And just pull your carpet back, just gently, just trimming off from the back. The key thing to remember is when it's a thicker and more expensive carpet, you might need to cut it from the back as well as from the front. We're using our straight trimming tool, that's exactly how we do it. We're just going to set up our first wall. So on your knee kicker, you're going to make sure those spikes are extended to the thickness of the carpet that you're installing. And you're going to lean down, putting all your body weight on the front before you kick it. And this way it'll stop it from slipping. And then using your bolster, just come to the front and gently just tuck that carpet in on behind the gripper, and then just repeat that same action along your wall, tucking it in and just tuck it down. Now this is a steel bolster. I'll put a bit of tape on both sides just purely so I don't scratch the paintwork on the skirting board. Repeating the same action again. Last one. Grippers. And that's your first perfect wall. Now we've completed our first wall, we've stretched it on so it's nice and tight. We're now going to work from the right hand side all the way along to the left hand side. But first of all, we're going to go and cut this corner in as we did on the opposite side. So using our straight trimming tool, thumb on the back of the carpet, keep pushing the carpet in until it meets both skirting boards, and once you're happy, pull that back and just in front of your thumb, put a straight line and finish that triangle off. Then simply pop your carpet into place. Fits perfectly. So now we've cut in our second corner, we're just going to go from the right hand side of the room to the left hand side and trim this wall in one. As we've said, we're going to cut from the right hand side of the room to the left hand side, and we're going to be using our hooked trimming tool. So let's get started. Hook blade in at a 45-degree angle, pushing nice and tight to the wall. And then what you're going to want to do is just use your backhand to push the carpet in, and then just nice and slowly just go along the whole wall. And then when you get to the end, you're going to come from the left hand side to the right and meet your cuts up. And as previously mentioned, if it's a slightly thicker or more expensive carpet, you may have to just trim off the back with your straight trimming tool. All done. And then, as always, off cut in the middle of the room. So now we've cut in our long wall, right side to left. Now what we're going to do is stretch the carpet onto the grippers and tuck it in so it's a nice, neat and crisp finish. Always make sure the spikes are fully extended on your kicker and then you're away. Let's move along. Doesn't matter if you go to the left or to the right, doesn't actually matter which way. Just whichever way is comfortable for you. To remember as well with your knee kicker is to put all your body weight on the front so it doesn't slip or skid, and that way you won't mark your skirting, and you can kick with whichever knee feels comfortable. So in this case I'm using the left knee. That's his first half done. If you do get any threads, using your straight trimming tool, just simply trim them off. More. And let's move on to the opposite side. After cutting the carpet off, we've worked from the centre of the wall, we've gone down to the left hand side, and now we're just going to repeat the same action on the right hand side. Trim off all these little threads. Look how perfect. That's nicely and tightly stretched and tucked in. Moving on to our third corner, we're just going to cut it like we have the previous two, and then we're just going to trim from the right hand side to the left hand side of the wall. As with the other ones, thumb in, using our straight trimming tool, trim that off there. Off there, and your corner will fall in nice and neatly. I'll go up to the right corner, using our hook trimming tool. And that's done. Off cut into the middle of the floor, as always. Time to stretch and tuck our carpet on. So that's that side done, from the centre to the right hand side. Doesn't matter which one you do first, makes no difference at all. Now we're going to go from the centre and off to the left hand corner. Beautifully stretched and tucked in nice and neat. We've cut in this long wall and the short wall. We're going to move on to our third wall. I'm going to start in the top left hand corner and work away all the way to the door frame. return from this corner to meet your cut, because if we continue cutting here, there's a chance we might cut into the carpet. So now we're just going to cut away. Tidying it up from the back. And then off cut into the middle, as always. An important thing to remember is if you do see these threads and you've already finished and you've installed and tucked your carpet in, just remember where it actually meets your skirting board, just use your straight trimming tool and simply trim it off. Just like the other two walls we've installed, we're going to stretch the carpet on and then we're going to tuck it in, starting from the centre, and we're going to work off to the right hand corner. Threads, and that's that stretched in, tucked in perfectly. And repeat that on the opposite side. Now we're just going to trim in our doorway as best we can, because we've not got our double nap block down yet, so we don't need to stretch it in as such, but we still need to trim the carpet down. So that's what we're going to do next. Normally we'd have a threshold strip here, known as a double nap block, but unfortunately we've not installed them yet, so we're just going to continue on cutting into the doorway. I'll slice it first, slice there, drop that in. We're just going to leave this excess carpet until we get our door trim. And with this, you want to come down the architrave, and ideally it's good practice if you put another piece underneath so you don't cut through both carpets. And then just trim it off from the back, nice and slowly, making sure you don't cut through both. And that's done. Use the back here just to simply push the carpet down in on behind the gripper. One side done. Just going to repeat that same action on this side. We haven't got the door trim installed yet, so we're just going to cut down there. Turn that off. Follow the contour of the architrave, making some small incisions to get the exact shape. tuck that down in as we did on the other one. I have to do this a couple of times repeatedly. So what we've got here is a solid cast iron radiator, and it sits on 2 feet, and what we've got to do is cut the carpet and then tuck it underneath so it looks like one continuous install. Now fortunately we've got these brass rings that are going to cover the carpet, so that should be quite a nice easy job, but to go underneath this is going to be very tricky. Spare piece of carpet underneath so we don't cut through both, and what we do is the centre of the radiator leg, we're going to cut a straight piece all the way along. The carpet's protecting us from cutting the one underneath, and finish off the cut and lift the carpet up. And now we're just going to repeat that same method on the opposite side. So down the centre of the leg, just nice and slowly, just trimming up so we don't cut the carpet underneath. Then what you're going to do is do a little triangle, one off to the left, doesn't matter which side's first, one off to the right, and that's done perfectly. And we can push this piece in and trim the waste off. A very, very tricky procedure. We now know we can trim that waste off. And over to the other side, triangle off to the left, doesn't matter which one's first, and then one off to the right. And we can tuck that piece in slightly and trim the waste off. Now we're just going to work over here and get the waste trimmed off. Very difficult working in these small areas. Just going to pull that out. Straight edge again. Repeat that process. You're just looking to trim off a little bit more each time. So now for the corner, thumb as previously shown, carpet into the corner, bring that out, trim that off, trim it off there, and you've got a perfect corner. Then using our hook trimming tool, I'm just going to work away from that corner, and finishing up at the end using the straight trimming tool just to trim that off. Continue that on. We've got a nice cut edge, we'll tuck that in a moment. So now what we're going to do is using that offcut back there, just put a little mark on the back of the carpet. And repeat on the opposite side. Then pop that onto there. You should have a rough guide of the carpet. Put in a nice straight line. There we go. We've got that nice and ready to be installed. And what we do now is we'll just work on the opposite side, which is here. Using a hook trimming tool, just trim that off to the end. Straight trimming tool, just to trim off the sides. Now that fits perfectly. Now we just need this piece to fit perfectly. So what we're going to do is pull that back out. And here's the really interesting part. So we pull that back. We've now got the guide that's a straight line. We're going to continue this straight line on and over. So waste piece of carpet underneath. We're going to get an off-cut piece of laminate, fortunately. Just going to pop that on there, tidy the carpet up, and then using your straight trimming tool, along there. And now that's given us the right depth for behind the radiator. And what we're going to do is repeat that method. Now what we're going to do is repeat that same method for the actual piece that's going underneath the iron radiator. So put on top. Just match up both sides. And I'm going to say that's about right. And then get your blade along the straight edge of the laminate. Quite a tricky procedure this. Okay, now we can see we've not marked it underneath. Some of it still hasn't been cut. Because we put this off cut underneath to stop the fact that we won't cut the carpet underneath. So now that's us ready to go. So now we've got all our incisions, the pieces dropped in, that drops in. So that's half the job done. And now what we're going to do is just pull that back, lifting that tab, push that around there. Now to cut around the pipe, it's the exact same as cutting around here. So what we're going to do is pull that back and just trim off a little triangle. Okay, that feeds that round. So that makes that look nice and neat. And then on this side, repeat the same process, just trimming off just a little bit around the pipe. Perfect. And then before we tuck this in, we're just going to stretch it. Trim around there just to release the carpet. A few relief cuts. Okay, and then just trimming off these little pieces, just tidying up now around the radiator, tucking it in, got the carpet stretched in nicely. Doing this to make it look like the carpet's continued in one. Well, that's not looking too bad at all. Put on the piece behind, then we just got to repeat that with the back leg. A little bit tricky this, there we go. So this is a very, very tricky part of the job, working around these legs, trying to tuck that carpet in. So use different types of tools, even like the likes of this chisel, just so we can get into the areas where our tools won't go. So it's just a case of cutting off a little piece at a time and simply just working with it until you get it all tucked in. So this is a pocket door which changes things ever so slightly. So we're going to trim the carpet in so we can get as far into the pocket door rail as possible. So let's just, for example, that should be enough. Trim off the back of this. So we've got to put a profile trim down here where the carpet meets the ceramic. That'll come afterwards. So what we're going to do is trim this carpet down. Just take a little bit off. Cut it off straight. And we can tuck that in. And then to do the opposite side, going to drop into this skirting. I'm trimming this off as well. So now as before, we're going to use an offcut. We're just pulling this carpet back and we're just going to cut on top of that offcut using our straight trimming tool. Just need to trim a little bit off until it's perfect size. So that'll do. That's perfect. We'll just trim a little bit more off here so that piece slots in nicely on at the back. That's nicely trimmed down. We're going to have to reinstall this section of the room because we've had to pull the whole carpet back to assess and measure for the radiator. So we'll just get that installed again now. Fortunately today we had a day off from the knee pads because we've been installing a really nice plush and thick underlay as well as a nice luxury carpet. This is our additional offcut from before. So I'd always recommend, because this is ceramic tiles, putting a piece of underlay down if you haven't got any knee pads, and kneel on that works a treat. But where the ceramic straight edge is, using your straight trimming tool, you can just trim along nice and slowly and get a straight edge. Doesn't have to be perfect because you've got a profile going over the top anyway, which will cover it if you don't get it cut straight. Just push that onto the ceramic tile, just follow that nice straight edge nice and slowly until you get to the end. There you go. You can see how nice and snug that is. And dealing with this pocket door is a little bit of a challenge. So we'll get this sorted first. So again, following that straight edge on the ceramic. And what we can do for this part is using a waste offcut. What we can do is trim along there. And then obviously trim that off there, and that's the piece that's going to go in the gap where the pocket door is. But to be fair, you can always cut twice, you can't add on. That's my philosophy. So we'll cut that down again, take a little bit more off as needed. Tuck that back in, it's looking much better. That piece goes in where the pocket door is. Getting your bolster. Now I wouldn't bolster this in because there's a high probability that you can chip the edge of the tile. So what I do is simply push it in first rather than actually bolstering. And then repeat on this side. Let's check we've got this little piece going in. why that skirting board's missing a little piece there, but we'll fill it in anyway, just to make sure it's a nice end to the job. And that's it. Like and follow for more flooring videos.